Once upon a time, in a small, picturesque village nestled between rolling hills and serene rivers, lived a couple named Arian and Mira. Their love story had begun years ago when Arian, a traveling musician, stumbled upon the village during a festival. Mira, with her laughter like chimes and a soul as radiant as the morning sun, had captured his heart instantly. They married after a whirlwind romance, their bond sealed with promises of love, adventure, and understanding. Mira adored Arian's passion for music, and Arian cherished Mira's ability to find joy in the simplest of things. Their home was filled with laughter, music, and dreams of a shared future. ####The drift. As the years went by, life began to weigh heavily on Arian. His music, once his solace, turned into a pursuit of perfection. He spent hours locked in his study, composing melodies he hoped would bring him fame. Meanwhile, Mira managed the household, her laughter fading as she felt the growing distance between them. Arian, blinded by his ambition, failed to notice the cracks forming in their relationship. He told himself he was doing it all for Mira, to give her a life of luxury. But Mira missed the simpler days when they would sit by the river, singing and dreaming together. One day, Arian received an invitation to perform in the grand city. It was his big break, a chance to showcase his talent to the world. Mira encouraged him, despite the ache in her heart. She hoped that success would bring back the man she had fallen in love with. ####The separation. Arian left for the city, promising to return soon. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, but Arian didn't come back. Letters from him grew infrequent, filled with tales of his growing fame, but devoid of the warmth Mira longed for. In his absence, Mira immersed herself in the village, teaching children to read, planting a community garden, and finding solace in the life around her. But at night, she would sit by the river, humming the melody Arian had once composed for her, tears streaming down her face. ###The return. One day, nearly 2 years after he had left, Arian returned to the village. He was greeted with cheers and admiration, his name now celebrated far and wide. But as he walked into their small home, he found it eerily quiet. Mira wasn't there to welcome him. He learned from the neighbors that Mira had withdrawn from him emotionally, though she still lived in their home. Hurt and guilt flooded Arian's heart. He realized how much he had neglected her, consumed by his own ambitions. That evening, Arian went to the riverbank, where he found Mira sitting alone, gazing at the moonlit water. "Mira," he whispered. She turned, her eyes reflecting both love and pain. "You're back," she said simply. "I'm sorry," Arian said, his voice breaking. "I lost myself, Mira. I forgot the melody of us." Mira didn't respond immediately. Instead, she picked up a small flute lying beside her and began to play the tune he had composed for her years ago. It was hauntingly beautiful, filled with the love, sorrow, and longing that had defined their years apart. Tears streamed down Arian's face as he listened. He realized that fame and success meant nothing without Mira by his side. ###The reconciliation. From that day on, Arian worked to mend their bond. He set aside his relentless pursuit of perfection, dedicating his time to rediscovering the joy of simple moments with Mira. Together, they began composing songs, their music now a blend of his talent and her soul. Their story became a legend in the village, a tale of love lost and found, of the power of forgiveness, and of the melody that bound two souls together. And so, Arian and Mira lived the rest of their days cherishing each other, their hearts in harmony once more. The new beginning. Months passed since Arian's heartfelt apology to Mira at the riverbank. Their lives had slowly begun to intertwine again, but rebuilding trust was not easy. Mira, though forgiving, was hesitant to let herself hope too much. Arian, on the other hand, was determined to prove his love and commitment. One evening, Arian surprised Mira with an idea. "Let's go on a journey," he said, his eyes filled with a familiar spark. "A journey?" Mira asked, puzzled. "Yes, together. Let's visit the places where we dreamed of going. No music, no distractions, just us." Mira hesitated, but eventually nodded. Deep down, she missed the man who once dreamed alongside her. The journey begins. They packed lightly and set out on foot, their first destination being a nearby forest Arian had once described in his songs. The dense trees and chirping birds brought back memories of simpler times. Arian held Mira's hand, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away. As they traveled, Arian would often stop and ask Mira to share her thoughts. He listened intently, learning about the life she had built while he was gone. The children she taught, the garden she nurtured, and the moments of loneliness she endured. "I didn't realize how strong you are," Arian said one night as they sat by a campfire. "You carried so much alone." "And I didn't realize how much I missed your voice," Mira replied softly. The challenge. Their next stop was the bustling city where Arian had spent his years of fame. He wanted to show Mira the life he had lived, hoping it would help her understand why he had been so blinded. As they walked through the crowded streets, Arian was recognized by fans who flocked to him for autographs. Mira watched silently, a mix of pride and pain in her heart. Later that night, as they sat on the rooftop of a small inn, Arian turned to Mira. "This was my world," he said, "but it always felt incomplete without you. I thought I could fill the emptiness with applause, but it only grew louder when I realized you weren't there." Mira's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "And yet I was here waiting. Hoping." "I know," Arian said, taking her hands in his. "And I promise I'll never let that happen again." The final test. The final leg of their journey brought them to a serene mountain village. There, they met an old musician who invited them to join a local festival. He handed Arian a sitar and asked Mira to sing, unaware of their history. At first, Mira refused. But Arian gently encouraged her, saying, "Let's create something together, like we used to." Mira hesitated before nodding. As Arian played, Mira's voice rose, hesitant at first but growing stronger with every note. The melody they created was unlike anything either of them had ever heard. It was raw, emotional, and filled with the essence of their journey: pain, love, forgiveness, and hope. When they finished, the crowd erupted into applause, but Arian wasn't looking at them. His eyes were fixed on Mira, who smiled through her tears. "That's our song," he said softly. "It is," Mira replied. The harmony restored. When they returned home, life was different. Arian and Mira started teaching music to the village children together, combining his expertise and her nurturing spirit. Their home became a hub of creativity, laughter, and love. Arian no longer sought fame, and Mira no longer felt alone. They realized their greatest achievement wasn't in the applause of strangers, but in the melody they created together, a harmony that would never fade.